My parents always called my sister the smart one and me the pretty one. But when I got into Harvard, they said she must have helped me cheat, so I did this at family dinner and proved them wrong. They went nuclear. I, female, 19, have spent my entire life being labeled as the pretty one, while my sister Cassandra, female 21, has always been the smart one in our family. And it's not that I hate being called pretty, obviously, but it's literally the only thing my parents ever notice about me. Ever since I was 8 and won this kitty beauty pageant that my mom, Sarah, female, 43, made me enter. I literally cried the night before because I didn't want to do it, but she insisted. It's like they decided that's all I am. My dad, Roy, male 45, teaches math at the community college, and my mom works in real estate, and they've always made such a huge deal about Cassandra's grades and test scores. For context, whenever Cassandra gets an A on a test or wins some academic thing, it's a whole celebration dinner. Her achievements get framed and put on the walls. My parents literally have a Cassandra's Achievements wall in our house with all her certificates and awards. Meanwhile, when I bring home straight A's, it's oh, that's nice, sweetie. And then they immediately ask if I've thought about modeling or something. I haven't. I don't want to model. I've told them this so many times, but they don't listen. The thing is, I'm actually really good at school stuff. Really good. I have a perfect GPA, and I've won several state-level science competitions. I always enter using just my initials, NM, so no one knows it's me and judges based on my work, not my appearance. My AP Physics teacher, Mr. Bott Wilson, has been privately mentoring me for the last 2 years because he says I have exceptional aptitude for math and physics. I have this whole collection of quantum physics books that I keep behind fashion magazines on my bookshelf, so nobody in my family notices. I know that sounds ridiculous, but they would literally be so confused if they saw me reading about quantum mechanics. I watch MIT OpenCourseWare lectures with headphones while pretending to watch makeup tutorials if anyone walks by my room. Not that there's anything wrong with makeup tutorials. I watch those too sometimes. I don't know. It's complicated. Honestly, I never really cared about being seen as the pretty one. Actually, that's not totally true. Sometimes I play into it because it's easier. Sometimes I'll deliberately act a little ditzy around my parents' friends or Cassandra's smart friends because it's just what they expect. People underestimate me, and sometimes that's easier than constantly trying to prove myself. I study until 3 a.m. most nights. I hide my energy drink cans in our neighbor's recycling bin. Sorry, Mrs. Johnson. Because if my family saw how many I drink, they'd realize how hard I'm actually working. But they never ask about my studying habits or my interests or anything academic. My relationship with Cassandra is weird. I love her. She's my sister. But she never corrects our parents when they do this stereotyping thing. Sometimes I think she likes being the smart one and doesn't want competition. We don't really talk about serious stuff much. She talks to me about her college courses sometimes, but always explains things like I'm a child, not like I could actually understand complex concepts. So anyway, the real issue happened last week. I got accepted to Harvard with a merit scholarship for physics. I was so excited when I got the email, I literally started crying and jumping around my room. I thought finally they'll see that I'm smart too. I decided to announce it at dinner that night, thinking maybe they'd finally be proud of my brain for once. At dinner, I told everyone I got accepted to Harvard with a merit scholarship for physics. My mom froze mid-bite and asked if there was some mistake. My dad actually laughed and suggested they must have seen my photos with the application. I explained it was specifically for academic achievement, and Cassandra looked super confused and asked what I even wrote my essay about. I told them about my essay on quantum computing applications, and my dad just exchanged this look with my mom that made me want to throw up. My dad asked who really helped me with it, and my mom turned to Cassandra asking if she had helped me with my application. I kept insisting I did everything myself, but my voice was starting to shake. I worked so hard for this. Then my dad got serious and told me they know I'm not Harvard material and asked what was really going on. I showed them the acceptance letter on my phone, and my mom suggested Harvard probably has diversity quotas they needed to fill. Like what? I'm a white girl from Connecticut. What diversity? I ended up going to my room and crying for hours that night. I kept rereading the acceptance letter to make sure it was real. They didn't even congratulate me, not once. I know my dad has always been weird about elite universities. He talks about them with this weird mix of respect and bitterness sometimes. I think he always wanted to work at a prestigious university. And my mom actually wanted to be a scientist when she was younger, but her parents pushed her toward more suitable careers for women. Anyway, we have this big extended family Easter dinner coming up in 2 weeks. Everyone will be there. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. And I've been thinking, maybe I should finally prove myself once and for all. I'm thinking about putting together a portfolio of all my academic achievements, my perfect SAT scores that I never told them about, certificates from competitions, recommendation letters from teachers, everything. I might even ask Mr. Wilson if he'd be willing to join by video call to vouch for me. Is that too dramatic? Am I going too far? I just don't know how else to make them see me as more than just the pretty one. I've tried just telling them for years, and they never listen. Sometimes when I'm really stressed before a big social event, which is often because I actually have pretty bad social anxiety, despite being the pretty one, I'll calm myself down by solving differential equations. I literally solved an entire calculus problem set before going to prom last year instead of doing breathing exercises or whatever normal people do. That's how much I love this stuff. I just want my family to see who I really am. But I'm worried that even with all this evidence, they still won't believe me. Or they'll think I'm just trying to compete with Cassandra or something. What should I do? Is the whole portfolio confrontation plan at Easter dinner too much? Is there a better way to handle this? Edit. Some people are asking about Cassandra's reaction to my Harvard acceptance. After dinner, she just went to her room without saying anything to me. We haven't really talked about it since. I tried to bring it up once and she changed the subject. She's home from college for spring break right now and we're basically just avoiding each other. Edit 2. To clarify about the academic competitions, they were mostly state science fairs and math olympiads. I would register with just my initials and my school, and I'd have my teacher submit the paperwork so my parents never knew. If they asked where I was going, I'd say study group or hanging out with friends. I have the certificates hidden in a box under my bed. Edit 3. A lot of people are asking why I care so much what my parents think. I've been asking myself the same question, to be honest. I guess I just want them to actually see me for who I actually am. Is that weird? I've spent my whole life feeling like they're looking at some version of me that isn't real. And yeah, I could just go to Harvard and be successful without their validation, but they're my parents. I shouldn't have to hide my textbooks behind fashion magazines in my own home. Now for the first update. So a lot has happened since my last post. Like a lot. First, I just want to say thank you to everyone who commented with advice and support. This is probably going to be even longer than my last post, so sorry about that. I'm still processing everything that happened, and my thoughts are all over the place. After reading all your comments and thinking about it for days, I decided to go ahead with my plan to confront my family at Easter dinner. I know a lot of you suggested having a private conversation with my parents first, but honestly, I've tried talking to them privately about this stuff so many times over the years, and they never listen. I felt like I needed to do something they couldn't just brush off or ignore. So for the 2 weeks between my Harvard acceptance and Easter, I basically turned into this evidence-collecting machine. I gathered everything I could find that proved I'm actually smart. My perfect SAT scores, 2,400, this was before they changed the scoring system, certificates from all those academic competitions I entered using just my initials, recommendation letters from my teachers, especially Mr. Wilson, who's been mentoring me, proof of this research paper I contributed to in a youth science journal last year, and documentation showing I'm actually valedictorian of my class, which my parents somehow convinced themselves was because I'm popular and well-liked, not because I have the highest GPA in the school. During this whole time, I was so anxious, I kept catching myself reciting prime numbers under my breath when I got stressed. Weird habit I've had since middle school. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. Sometimes when I get really nervous before tests, I'll go through the first 50 prime numbers, and it somehow calms me down. Also, I usually celebrate my academic achievements by adding to my collection of vintage slide rules. I have 17 now. It's this weird thing I started when I was like 13 and found one at a yard sale. Nobody in my family has ever asked about them, even though they're displayed on my bookshelf. After I got my Harvard acceptance, I ordered this really beautiful brass one from the 1920s on eBay. Things at home got even worse after the Harvard announcement. My parents kept making these comments like, "You must have really charmed the admissions committee," or suggesting that Harvard probably wanted to add some diversity to their engineering program, whatever that's supposed to mean. I literally overheard my dad on the phone with a colleague saying that I must have had help with my application and that standards must be slipping at Harvard these days. Like what? Harvard's acceptance rate is literally the lowest it's ever been. My mom keeps showing my acceptance letter to her friends, but always with this weird disclaimer like, "We were so surprised," or "Who would have thought?" As if it's shocking that I could get in on my own merits. It makes me feel sick every time. I keep telling myself I just want the truth to be acknowledged. That's all. But if I'm being totally honest, which is kind of the point of anonymous Reddit posts, I guess, I was definitely planning the most dramatic way possible to reveal everything. I specifically timed certain revelations for when specific relatives would be there, like waiting to show my published research until my Uncle Ted was paying attention because he's always talking about how girls aren't good at real science. And I practiced what I was going to say in the mirror like 50 times so I wouldn't cry or mess up. So yeah, maybe I wasn't just interested in the truth being acknowledged. Maybe I wanted to make a point too. Cassandra kept trying to talk to me privately in the days leading up to Easter. She knocked on my door like 3 different times, asking if we could chat for a minute, but I was convinced she was trying to figure out how to undermine me or talk me out of my plan. Looking back now, maybe she was actually trying to reach out, but at the time I was so defensive, I just kept making excuses about being busy. 2 days before Easter, I came back from a run and found Cassandra in my room, looking through my Harvard acceptance materials that were spread out on my desk. I literally saw red. I demanded to know what she was doing going through my stuff. She jumped and said she was just curious about what courses I might be taking. I accused her of looking for evidence that I cheated or had help, trying to prove I couldn't have done this on my own. She looked hurt and claimed she never said I cheated and was actually impressed. I laughed and pointed out she never defended me when Mom and Dad basically accused me of lying about my application. She started fidgeting with my acceptance letter and said she was just surprised and processing the news. I said something sarcastic about how I couldn't possibly be smarter than her because that would ruin the whole family dynamic. Then she started crying, which I wasn't expecting. She told me I had no idea what it was like to suddenly lose the one thing that makes you special in this family. I felt bad for like 2 seconds, but was still so angry. I just told her to get out of my room. By the time Easter came around, I had everything prepared. I created this professional-looking portfolio with all my achievements arranged chronologically. I made sure Mr. Wilson would be available by video call during dinner. He was actually super supportive when I explained the situation. I even packed a bag and arranged to stay with my best friend, Jordan's family, just in case things went badly. Jordan's parents have always been super nice to me, and when I explained the situation, they immediately offered their guest room for as long as I needed it. I wrote out these key talking points on index cards to make sure I would stay calm and articulate even if people tried to interrupt or dismiss me. I rehearsed everything so many times. The night before, I couldn't sleep at all. I just kept running through different scenarios in my head, imagining how everyone would react. Easter at our house is always this big production with extended family, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone. My mom spent days cooking and cleaning and stressing about everything being perfect. She always does this for family gatherings. I helped with some of the cooking to try and keep things normal, but there was this weird tension between us the whole time. During dinner, I was so anxious I barely ate anything. I just pushed food around my plate, waiting for the right moment. I knew it would come eventually because someone always brings up college plans during these family dinners. Sure enough, after the main course, while everyone was still at the table, my Aunt Maria asked Cassandra about her plans for next year. She's finishing her junior year at Yale. Then my Uncle Ted turned to me. Uncle Ted made a comment about how nice it must be having a smart sister who could help with my Harvard application. A few people chuckled. My mom smiled that tight smile she does when she's uncomfortable. My cousin Blake joked that Harvard must have loved having such a photogenic girl apply and that I'd be on all their brochures for sure. More laughing. I just sat there, gripping my napkin under the table. Then Uncle Ted asked if I was planning to join a sorority at Harvard, adding with this gross wink that the social scene was probably the real reason I applied. That was it. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up slowly, still trying to stay calm, even though my heart was literally pounding out of my chest. I asked for everyone's attention, and my voice came out steadier than I expected. The table gradually got quiet, with a few confused looks being exchanged. I went to get my portfolio from where I'd hidden it in the living room. When I came back, everyone was watching me. I explained that I've been labeled as the pretty one my entire life, while Cassandra has been the smart one. I clarified that I wasn't saying I'm not pretty or that Cassandra isn't smart, but that's not all we are. I opened my portfolio and started going through the evidence methodically. I showed them my SAT scores, a perfect 2400, and mentioned I never showed them to anyone in my family because no one ever asked. I passed the official score report around the table. My dad tried to say something, but I kept going. I showed them a letter from my AP physics teacher, Mr. Wilson, who has been mentoring me for 2 years. Then I turned to my laptop that I'd set up connected to our TV and told them he agreed to join us for a minute. I pressed call, and Mr. Wilson appeared on the screen. My dad stood up and said this was inappropriate dinner conversation, but Mr. Wilson was already speaking. He confirmed that I was one of the most exceptional students he'd ever taught in his 25-year career. He praised my understanding of theoretical physics concepts and assured everyone that all my work was completed independently and with extraordinary insight. He said Harvard was lucky to have me. My mom was crying by this point. My dad's face was getting redder by the second. I thanked Mr. Wilson and ended the call, then continued through my evidence. I showed them a research paper I contributed to last year in the Journal of Youth and Science, explaining that I used my initials NM because I didn't want anyone to know it was me. I held up the printed copy, then I showed them certificates from academic competitions I'd won over the last 4 years, explaining that I competed using only my initials so I would be judged on my work, not on how I look. The room was completely silent except for my mom's sniffling. My dad looked like he was about to explode. Cassandra was just staring at me with this expression I couldn't read. My extended family had mixed reactions. Uncle Ted looked uncomfortable, Aunt Maria seemed impressed, and a few of my cousins were whispering to each other. But the most surprising reaction came from my grandparents. My grandmother actually stood up and came over to me, putting her hand on my shoulder. She told me she always knew I was more than they gave me credit for. She said she had watched how they treated me differently for years but didn't know how to address it. She apologized for not saying something sooner. My grandfather nodded in agreement, which was huge because he rarely expresses emotions about anything. I finished by saying I would be staying with Jordan's family until my parents could acknowledge their pattern of dismissing my intelligence and pigeonholing me as just the pretty one. My mom stood up with mascara running down her face. She said I was being dramatic and didn't need to leave, suggesting we could discuss this privately. My dad said this was completely inappropriate and that I'd embarrassed the entire family just to make a point. I replied that was exactly the problem. They still didn't get it. I went upstairs, got my pre-packed bag, and left despite their protests. My grandmother tried to follow me outside, but I just couldn't talk anymore without completely breaking down. That was 2 days ago. Since then, my phone has been blowing up with texts and calls from various family members. Some are actually apologetic. My Aunt Maria sent this long text saying she had no idea I felt this way and that she's always thought I was brilliant, but assumed I didn't want to talk about academic stuff because no one in the family ever did. My parents have called about 20 times, but I've only answered once. My mom was crying, saying I embarrassed them and created a scene at a family gathering. My dad said we could discuss my academic interests when I matured enough to come home and apologize for my behavior. I hung up. Cassandra has texted a few times saying she wants to talk. The most recent one just said, "I didn't know. I'm sorry." I haven't responded yet because I don't know what to say. Jordan's parents have been amazing. They set up their guest room for me and told me I can stay as long as I need to. Jordan's dad actually teaches chemistry at the high school in the next town over, and when he found out about my interest in physics, he got really excited and started talking to me about quantum mechanics. It was the first time I've ever had that kind of conversation with an adult who isn't a teacher. I'm supposed to give Harvard my final decision by May 1st, which is coming up soon. Part of me wants to just accept and move forward with my life without my family's validation. But another part of me is heartbroken that what should have been one of the happiest moments of my life has turned into this nightmare. So, what do I do now? Do I try to reconcile with my parents if they apologize? Do I just move on and accept that they might never see me for who I really am? I feel relieved that the truth is out, but also completely exhausted and sad. Now for the second update. So it's been about 3 weeks since the whole Easter dinner blow-up thing, which honestly feels like 3 years with everything that's happened. I've been staying at Jordan's house this whole time. Her parents are seriously the nicest people ever. It's been weird, like really weird, but also kind of good. I've basically had minimal contact with my family while trying to figure out what I even want. I've been focusing on Harvard stuff, choosing courses, finding roommates, etc., and also just like processing everything, I guess. When I get stressed, I apparently stress bake. I've made like 3 different types of bread for Jordan's family as a thank you: sourdough, this weird honey wheat thing, and banana bread, which isn't really bread, but whatever. I've also started going running at 5 a.m., which is not something I ever did before. Jordan's dad keeps joking that I'm trying to burn off all the bread calories, but honestly, I just need to clear my head. Oh, and I've been playing chess with Jordan's dad almost every night. He's really good, like tournament level good, and it reminds me of playing with my grandfather when I was little. For some reason, that's been one of the most comforting things these past few weeks. Anyway, so the actual update. About a week after I left home, I got this text from Cassandra asking if we could meet for coffee. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be honest. Like, part of me was still so angry, and part of me missed my sister. I spent literally 2 days overthinking it before finally agreeing. We met at this little coffee shop halfway between Jordan's house and our parents' place. I got there early because anxiety and watched her walk in looking super nervous. She was fidgeting with her phone and I could tell she had like prepared notes or something, which was so Cassandra lol. I was already assuming she was going to criticize me or tell me I embarrassed the family or whatever. So when she sat down, I was already kind of defensive. But then she just apologized, like immediately. She apologized and admitted she'd been a really bad sister. I just kind of sat there not knowing what to say, because that was literally the last thing I expected. Then she told me something that completely shocked me. She said she's always known I was brilliant, like since we were kids. She said she found my physics notebook when I was like 14 and realized I was doing calculations way beyond what I should have been able to do at that age. But she never said anything because she liked being the smart one. She admitted she felt threatened by my intelligence because it was her whole identity in the family. She also told me, and this part made me feel kind of bad, that she's actually been struggling with some of her courses at Yale, like really struggling. But she's been afraid to tell anyone because being the smart one is so much pressure and she didn't want to disappoint everyone. I was just sitting there with my coffee getting cold, trying to process all this. Like my sister, who I thought was perfect at school, was actually failing a class, and she knew I was smart this whole time. Then she told me something even more surprising. She said our parents have been like deeply reflecting on everything. She said after I left, they sat down and went through my entire evidence portfolio for hours. They've apparently started seeing a family therapist to understand why they pigeonholed us both so badly. I told her I never wanted to hurt anyone, which is kind of not completely true, because if I'm being completely honest with myself, I had fantasized for years about proving everyone wrong in exactly that kind of dramatic way. Is that terrible? A few days after meeting Cassandra, I got this super long email from my dad, like pages long. He acknowledged specific times he dismissed my intelligence, like when I tried to talk about a science documentary when I was 12, and he literally patted me on the head and said, "That's nice, sweetie," before turning to ask Cassandra what she thought. He remembered specific instances that I had completely forgotten about. It was weird reading it. Good weird, but weird. Then the next day, I got this handwritten 12-page letter from my mom, who does handwritten letters anymore. My hand would literally fall off. She explained how her parents only ever valued her for her looks when she was growing up. Her dad would literally introduce her as my beautiful daughter and never mentioned her accomplishments. She said she unconsciously did the same thing to me without realizing it. The letter made me cry, which was annoying because I've been trying so hard not to cry about any of this. They both asked if we could meet at my favorite restaurant, this little Thai place I love. Not sure how they knew it was my favorite, but whatever. I was super nervous about it, but agreed. I had Jordan on standby to call me with a fake emergency if things went badly. Oldest trick in the book, but still useful, lol. In the days before the meeting, Cassandra texted me that our parents had been gathering their own evidence. They'd found all my hidden awards, talked to my teachers, and even discovered the science journal I published in. My mom apparently cried for like 2 straight days after finding my quantum physics books hidden behind fashion magazines. I was feeling super conflicted about the whole thing. Like I wanted to reconcile with them, but I was also still really hurt. And part of me was afraid they were just saying what I wanted to hear. So I'd come home and things would go back to normal. So I get to the restaurant and they're already there waiting. My dad immediately stands up when he sees me and looks like he wants to hug me, but stops himself. My mom has clearly been crying, but tries to smile at me. I sit down feeling super stiff and awkward and thank them for meeting me, which is such a weird, formal thing to say to your own parents, but I didn't know what else to say. My dad immediately admitted they'd been completely wrong about me my entire life. My mom said there was no excuse for how they'd treated me, but they wanted to try to explain. My dad tells me how his father only ever valued athletics and dismissed his interest in math and teaching. He said he overcompensated with Cassandra by celebrating her academic achievements, but somehow put me in the same box his dad put him in, just in a different way. My mom explained how her parents emphasized her beauty over her brains her entire life. She actually wanted to be a chemist, which I never knew, but her parents pushed her toward modeling and pageants instead. She said she unconsciously recreated that pattern with me without even realizing it. I just sat there listening and trying to keep my composure, even though I felt like I was going to either cry or throw up, or maybe both. Gross sorry. My dad admitted they had put both me and Cassandra in boxes that were never fair to either of us. They went through specific incidents I had mentioned in my evidence portfolio, like when I won that state math competition using just my initials and they never even knew about it. Or when I asked for quantum physics books for Christmas when I was 15 and they got me makeup instead. They remembered details I didn't even include in my portfolio, which showed they had really been thinking about this. They proposed family therapy and outlined specific changes they wanted to make to rebuild trust. They offered to host a proper Harvard celebration focusing on my academic achievements. I told them I appreciated the apology but wasn't ready to just move back home and pretend everything was fine. And then they surprised me again. They said they didn't expect me to. My dad reached for this large portfolio bag I hadn't noticed before and pulled out this really elegant frame containing my Harvard acceptance letter. Next to it was my published research paper, also professionally framed. My mom told me they'd contacted Harvard about establishing a small scholarship in my name, which is wild and probably excessive, but also kind of amazing. My dad showed me photos on his phone of my bedroom. They had completely redecorated it with all my academic achievements displayed prominently. They had even found the slide rules I collect and put them in this beautiful display case. My mom was crying at this point, saying they couldn't undo the past, but wanted to be part of my future. I was trying so hard to keep it together, but I could feel myself starting to lose it. My dad said they weren't asking for immediate forgiveness, just a chance to earn it. My mom told me they were incredibly proud of me, of my mind, persistence, and courage, and that's when I lost it. I finally broke down crying in the middle of this restaurant after weeks of trying to stay strong. It was ugly crying too, not cute movie crying, like snot and mascara everywhere crying. I agreed to try family therapy and work on rebuilding our relationship. I moved back home last week, but with some clear boundaries. Like, I told them I need them to actually ask me about my work and interests, not just assume. And they need to stop with the pretty comments all the time. It's been different, good different. They're really trying, I can tell. They catch themselves when they start falling into old patterns. Cassandra and I have been having these long talks about quantum physics, and she's actually really interested in it when she's not feeling threatened by my understanding of it. We're developing a more real sister relationship, I think. My parents organized this proper Harvard celebration last weekend. They invited my teachers, Mr. Wilson, Jordan and her family, and other friends who have supported my academic journey. My dad made this public apology for not recognizing my brilliance sooner, which was kind of awkward but also really meaningful. My mom gave this toast, acknowledging how proud they were of my intelligence and perseverance that made me cry again. Seriously, I've cried more in the past month than my entire life before this. I'm still processing everything, honestly. This whole experience has fundamentally changed how I see my family and myself. I still catch myself sometimes doubting my intelligence despite all the evidence to the contrary. Those patterns run deep, I guess. I'm looking forward to Harvard, but I also recognize that healing my family relationships is going to be ongoing work. We've started therapy, both family and individual, and it's helping, but there's a lot to unpack. I guess the biggest thing I've learned is that people are more complex than the labels we give them, including myself. I'm not just the pretty one or the smart one. I'm both, and a lot of other things too. Thank you all again for your support through this whole mess. Your advice and encouragement really helped me find the courage to stand up for myself and also to give my family a chance to make things right.